Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today I want to talk about the Red Box Warrior is a woman, and I want to talk about Larry Elmore, and I want to talk about how Canon is forged. So, biggest story of the week right now is Dungeons and Dragons story of the week, and boy, do you have to say of the week, of the month, of the year, because there is just so much momentum on Dungeons and Dragons. It's absolutely incredible, and at the same time, there's so much stagnation on the OSR and the indie side, and I think the thing that's really changed um, is the OSR and the indie are now starting to openly discuss how little traction there is on the side of just momentum for any of their projects, right? And what they're going to do about it. It's very interesting. Black Nerd has a channel, and he was going over recently Me TV, who is going to put on classic cartoons, and it made a big story because there was literally like 40 different cartoons they were cobbling together to make this collection. And when you cobble everything together, you can actually get something of pretty high value or pretty high significance. And I think increasingly on the OSR and the indie side, they may need to think about major aggregation, right? Like consolidations, forming some type of group, because doing it by themselves, they're trying to grasp even a tiny bit of attention from Dungeons and Dragons, and it's extremely difficult. It's really, and it doesn't seem to be working. So let's talk about the Red Box Warrior is a woman. 1983. It's the Mentzer Red Box, okay, which means it's the basic rules for Dungeons and Dragons, and it is a red dragon with a single horn, and that red dragon has one single person fighting it, right? That's what you see in the image that's on the red box, okay? That for 42 years, or actually came out in 1983, so that's 84, it's 94, 2000, 94, 2004, 2014, 2024, 41 years. For 41 years, 41 years, there's been this secret, like that the Red Box Warrior is a woman, but none of us knew it. Everybody, I've literally never heard anyone talk about the Red Box Warrior as a woman. So how did that canon get said that the Red Box Warrior was a man, right? So, and how did it change? It got said in 1983. It changes in 2024, right? This is really interesting. So Larry Elmore draws the Red Box Warrior in 1983. It becomes canon when that art goes onto the Red Box, and that's being presented to everybody, right? And it is the ampersand, right? Dungeons and Dragons. And at this point, TSR is putting this out, and they're establishing that this is canon, right? So canon, the flow of canon in this case is Larry Elmore does the art, it goes onto an official Dungeons and Dragons product, and increasingly that is extremely important. People care about a thing when that thing becomes official. A good example of this was 20-Sided Tavern. If you went to that 6 months ago, you were going, somebody would tell you, oh, it looks like a Dungeons and Dragons play, and they're like, Dungeons and Dragons play? What are you talking about? I play Dungeons and Dragons. I've never heard of this thing. They were like, well, it's like Dungeons and Dragons. Where you're like, oh, well, it's like Pathfinder. It's not Dungeons and Dragons at all. It's completely different. It has nothing to do with Dungeons and Dragons. It's a copy, right? Like, it's like Nikes and Norkies. Like, people care a lot about your Nikes. They don't care about your Norkies, right? Like, but that's the point. Like, but now 20-Sided Tavern is official Dungeons and Dragons, right? So the reason people care about Larry Elmore's art is it went on and it was official, right? Like, it's a really big deal, right? So really, it's really fascinating what's happening, right? So he puts that in, and everybody looks and they're like, oh, that warrior's incredibly jacked and is running toward that dragon, and is going to slay that dragon. And that warrior look at the speed, the adamancy, the intensity, it looks like they're going to slay that dragon. And again, it goes back to our perceptions. In 1983, everybody's like, anybody attacking the dragon is going to be a dude. Well, why is that? Well, because we've never seen a decent female-led actioner. Like, you're like, wait, you mean like a Hollywood? But they're like, yeah, there's never, every action movie has a man, right? Now, here we are in 2024. Do we have a female-led actioner? Everybody's like, yeah, that did it. Like that was like Die Hard. I don't know. That's a good question. Right? But we do know there are exceptions. So that's why people were assuming this was a man, right? And the way Larry did the art. What's really fascinating is now we're here, right? And I don't think at this point Larry Elmore has talked about it, but you can bet here's a good question. Is Larry Elmore alive? I don't know the answer to that. That's interesting. If Larry Elmore's alive and he goes to another convention, they're going to do nothing but talk to him about this. People will immediately say, Larry, is this a dude? Is that a lady or a dude, right? And this is fascinating because the reality is, how does canon get established? Larry Elmore has no right to establish canon on that character, right? He did the art, but the art was commissioned, right? And so whatever he sets down is canon. But he didn't make it clear that was a dude. It absolutely could be a lady, right? Because here we are in 2024, and the miniature that shows the new canon, that's the miniature shows it's a lady. That's pretty interesting. That is very interesting, right? So it's and Larry sets it into canon. Larry does the art. They put it on to, and actually he hasn't done anything until it gets put on an official product, because they might have rejected his picture, right? And even more than that, one thing I found out is like the picture is bigger than that. There was a lot going on in that picture, and they pulled it down, right? So there's like a wizard over on the left. So the fighter isn't even fighting that dragon alone. The fighter is fighting with the wizard, but because that's not shown on the red box, and like the broader picture, the painting, if that's just in a coffee table, well, that's not canon. Nobody cares about that wizard. So this is incredibly important. And right now, we're really seeing how canon is established. It's powerful. It is really powerful. So the flow is, the artist does the art. It goes through an editing process, which is part of establishing canon. It goes on to the product, right? That's when it really becomes official Dungeons & Dragons canon. The minute a Dungeons & Dragons experiencer, a Dungeon Master or a Dragon Master, looks at it, that's when it really becomes canon. And the Dungeon Masters and the Dragon Masters can absolutely reject material that the designers and Hasbro established, or at that point it was TSR, established as canon. And I think that's happened already. A place where a product is technically canon, but has turned out to not be canon, is Rick and Morty, right? Everybody's like, Rick and Morty, what are you talking about? Like, what is this garbage, right? And the reality is, I've literally never seen anyone. I've never seen Rick and Morty played in the IRL, and I think and actually, I've been on YouTube a long time. I've never seen anybody even run that box, even on a stream, right? And so the community has said, this isn't canon. We don't care about this, right? And so the Dungeon Masters and the Dragon Masters of the world ignoring a product can bump something out of canon effectively, right? Which is really interesting. And then Hasbro can take canon established in 1983 and change it, right? And they can do that if the evidence, because we're all like, oh, that's a dude, right? Because we assumed it, but we all understand the definition of the word assumption. We were making assumptions. The evidence has been presented. The Red Box Warrior is now a woman. That is fascinating. And it also means there's no saturation point for the interest in Dungeons & Dragons. Like this, it made international news when this hit. And it's really profound, and it really is a big question of how is Canon established, right? And very, very exciting. Major news story this week. Every single word you just heard is my humble opinion. What's important is when I get to hear your humble opinion, when you get in the comments and send your traffic. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a fetch millennium.